press live on my website, and then I went into labor 4 hours later.
Wow. My guest today is founder and creative director of Beyond 9, Naomi Raybould. Naomi shares how she's built a business with the attitude she didn't get when working for the biggest media company in the UK.
The thing that really tipped me over the edge, she said to me, well, I didn't get my flexible working request, so I don't see why you should.
How she revolutionized the maternity industry and the best types of people to hire in a startup.
The maternity wear market is diabolical. The naivety from not working in fashion actually set me in really good stead.
I think naivety is a superpower.
This kind of startup culture, you need a certain type of person.
Yeah. What is that certain type of people?
I've had people who are more just doesn't work.
Yeah. Welcome to Unboxed. I'm your host, Connie Nam, the founder of Astrid and Miyu. In these conversations, I speak to founders, investors, and creators who are all breaking boundaries in their space to discover the person behind the brand and what it took for them to build their empires. Hello, Unboxed listeners. Today's episode is powered by Payhawk, and we at Astrid and Miyu are excited to share how they've transformed our financial operations. Remember when our finance team was constantly buried under a mountain of receipts and expense reports? Those days are long gone, thanks to Payhawk. Now, our finance team have evolved from receipt chasers to strategic powerhouses. Payhawk's innovative spend management platform has liberated our finance team from mundane, repetitive tasks. No more endless hours spent chasing down missing receipts or matching expenses within Xero. With Payhawk handling day-to-day finance tasks, our team now has the time and mental space to dive deep into financial analysis, forecasting, and strategic planning. They're not just number crunchers anymore. They're key players in shaping Astrid and Miyu's future. But it's not just about our finance team. Payhawk has introduced us to what they call a healthy spend culture. Every employee knows exactly how, where, and what they can spend on. It's all pre-approved and crystal clear. This means less time worrying about expenses and more time focusing on what really matters, growing our business and serving our customers. Curious to see how Payhawk could elevate your finance team and streamline your operations? There's a link in our show notes where you can book a demo. Don't forget to mention you heard about them on the Unbox podcast. We're incredibly grateful to Payhawk for supporting both our show and Astrid and Miyu's growth journey. Hi, Naomi.
Hi, Connie.
Welcome to the studio. Welcome to Unboxed.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so nice to meet you in person because I've been a fan of the brand since I was pregnant with my first in 2017, which is exactly when you launched the brand.
That's right.
Yeah. And I guess we've kind of been connected on Instagram, through your brand and my Instagram. But it's so nice to see the person behind the brand and behind the clothes that I really loved wearing.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
And I love your outfit today as well.
Thank you.
So tell me about yourself for our audience. For those of you who don't know Beyond 9, tell me a bit about Beyond 9 and how you got started and your background.
So I launched Beyond 9 in 2017. It came from a kind of frustration through my first pregnancy when I realized that it was really, really hard to find clothes that I wanted to wear that felt like me when I was pregnant. And I'd always loved fashion, didn't work in fashion, but I used to spend my paycheck basically. Back in the day, it was down in Whistles when Jane Shepperson was in charge. Would go down there, basically spend all my money. And I hadn't sort of consciously realized how big a part of my identity getting dressed was until I couldn't get dressed in the way that I wanted to get dressed. And I remember thinking when I was pregnant with my first son, just thinking who on earth is designing this product? This isn't product that I want to wear. Very poorly, cheaply made, bad quality fabrics. Everything was skin tight as well. And that's not something I'd ever worn before. And I didn't really want to wear it when I was pregnant either.
Yeah.
And I found that really challenging. And then postpartum as well, I found that quite challenging when your body's not as it used to be.
Yeah, it was the same. Everything else that was out there was very mumsy. And what I liked about Beyond 9 was it just looked normal and very hip.
Yeah, so it basically came from wanting to design products that I wanted to wear. And I sort of went back to work, forgot about it, and then got pregnant with my second child. And the same feelings started coming back. And that's when I was I'm going to just see if I can design something that I want to wear. And what kickstarted the idea was that my mum lent me some jumpsuits that she wore in the 80s when she was pregnant with me and my brothers. And the first 2 jumpsuits that I released were basically inspired by my mum's jumpsuits.
Wow.
That
So she was a
me.
fashionista.
Well, I guess she was. Yeah, I never thought about her in that way. But these were like turquoise and like fuchsia pink, like so 80s. And I got really lucky. I found a pattern cutter that was local to me at the time, and she was able to like understand what I was trying to achieve. And we spent a lot of time together working on the patterns.
How did you find this person?
She literally I saw her like her shop. She lived
so there was a shop,
in Southeast London. So lucky. And then I got even luckier because she introduced me to the factory in London that I still actually work with today.
Wow.
And they were willing to make me like 10 units minimum.
Yeah.
So they were able to help me.
That is so important. I always talk about my first supplier who let me produce 5 units.
Yes.
Per design.
You need someone to like give you a break.
Changer. Yes.
Yeah. And because I don't know if it was different for you, but I wasn't connected in the industry because I didn't come from that background.
No, me neither.
And actually, it's really hard to find, isn't it? To find the right people to work with and who are going to let you in and do those small kind of runs.
Absolutely.
And I went off on maternity leave at 36 weeks pregnant with my second baby. So I had 4 weeks to like set up my Instagram, build my website, shoot my product. And I did all of that, press live on my website, and then I went into labour 4 hours later.
Wow.
And I was doing it on a pre-order basis because I didn't have any cash. And I knew I had to get my 10 units to hit. And I got those whilst I was in labour. So then I was like, okay, I can relax now.
And how long did it take to deliver? Because I remember I did order the jumpsuits on pre-order.
It was between 2 and 3 weeks at the beginning. And in that first order, I hit 80 orders. And that's when I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'm not the only one who feels like this.
80 on the first order is amazing. How did you get the name out there? How did people find out about you?
I had been gifting samples to mum influencers.
Yes.
So it was at the time where mum influencers were like massively on the rise. And there was a really, I guess, big space on Instagram for that. A lot of those influencers aren't around anymore, actually, but a few of them are still going. And that's what I did. And I got lucky. They liked the product and they spoke about it and promoted it. So I only had about 300 followers, I think, at the time.
Yeah, wow.
But there was an audience that wanted...
engagement and conversion is amazing.
Yeah, it was. But I do remember 3 weeks later, like 80 jumpsuits turning up at my house, and I had like a newborn baby strapped to me. And I did think, what the hell have I done? Because I was like handwriting all the envelopes, writing all the thank you notes, and driving all the product down to the post office. Yeah. And I did wonder what I was doing.
Whether I was one of those customers.
Well, probably not, because I launched with the jersey jumpsuits, and I think you bought the linen ones, didn't you? So that was probably the summer, that summer though, actually.
Yeah.
So that's how it all began.
Oh, wow. And I read somewhere that you faced discrimination when you're working in media, and like that's kind of inspired starting Beyond 9. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I work for a big media organisation, the biggest media organisation in the UK, and I tried to go back to work after my first son, and I applied for flexible working, and my request was denied. And I then appealed it, and it was denied again.
Yeah, what was their reason?
They just said they didn't think the job could be done on I put a proposal together around a job share, and they felt for some reason that the job couldn't be done as a job share. I don't actually think there was a real...
Yeah.
When I look back on it, I'm like, they just didn't want to be flexible for whatever
they
reason.
couldn't be bothered. Yeah.
And the thing that really tipped me over the edge was that... I went in to discuss the appeal that had been rejected. And it was with a new manager. She would have been my line manager. I hadn't worked under her before. And she said to me, well, I didn't get my flexible working request, so I don't see why you should. And I was like, that's the exact reason why I should get it. And you should be fighting for my corner, because that's not right. Like,
that's so disappointing.
Yeah,
if it's coming from someone who hasn't had kids, sure, like maybe they don't know what it requires. But if like you've gone through something, like you surely want to pave the path for future generations. Right?
So I left.
Yeah,
I was like, I'm not staying for this, and I actually went to work at a children's charity, and I worked under another female boss who didn't have kids. And I went in, took the job full time, and after I'd been there for about 6 months, I pitched a job share for her, and she supported me and made it happen. And it was the first job share that had ever happened in that company. And she championed that for me as a woman that didn't have children. And So that was a nice juxtaposition to what I'd experienced
that's incredible.
before. But, you know, it spurred me on, I guess, to start Beyond 9 at the time, I wanted flexibility around my children, and it allowed me to do that. And now I feel really passionately. I employ all women at the moment, and I think about 85% are mothers. So we're very, very flexible around childcare. And, you know, mothers are so often left out and excluded from the workplace because an employer won't be flexible.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, if you want to get stuff done, you get a mum in to do it.
Yeah, the amount of work you can cram in between 9 to 5, like when you're a mom, because you just don't have like margin, right? You need to cram it in. Like you have no like time to squeeze it in on the weekend.
Yeah. And you totally learn the value of time in a way that you just don't comprehend before, right? So yeah, hugely efficient team that I have now.
That's amazing. So you've solved your own pain points in your organization.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
And what were the biggest challenges along the way?
Oh my God, I've had loads.
Yeah, I can imagine, because you've also had 3 kids, another 2 kids after your first, right?
Yes. So that was a big challenge, certainly at the beginning. And I think in a way, the brand grew very organically and not super slow, but it hasn't been like rapid growth, because for a long time I was working around my children. Another big challenge, I guess, the thing I find the hardest, and I'm sure it doesn't change as you grow, is the cash flow piece. So we've never had any investment. We've never pitched for any investment. It's completely bootstrapped. I borrowed $4,000 off my dad at the beginning to help me pay for the samples and do all of that. And I was on a very strict repayment plan before I was allowed to pay myself. So the cash flow aspect is really, really challenging. And I've only recently I've got a COO coming in who's got a finance background. And that's a real blind spot for me. Yeah. So that's something that... and
it's so important, such an important part especially when you're growing quickly.
Yeah, right? Completely. So that's been super challenging. And I guess not coming from a fashion background and not having the network at times at the beginning was hard. But at the same time, I think having the naivety from not working in fashion actually set me in really good stead. Because sometimes I think if I knew what I knew now, I never would have had the guts
to
do it.
Yeah, I think naivety is a superpower.
Yeah, it is at the beginning, isn't it? Because you would just be crippled by fear.
I think along the way as well, because I kind of have this attitude still of like, oh, we can do it. Like even when people are like, but like no one else has done it, but they're not doing well. Like we do things differently.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a great attitude to have, isn't it?
Yeah.
And keeps things fresh as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it oftentimes it happens.
Yeah.
If you believe in it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Was there a tipping point for the business?
COVID, weirdly.
Yeah. How so?
So, I mean, I feel like you fell into 2 camps as a business. You either, it was really, really tough and there's lots of businesses that didn't survive, or you thrived. And I think for us, we thrived. And I think part of that came from the fact that lots of people were at home.
And they wanted comfy wear.
Yeah. They were working from home. They wanted comfortable things to work from home. They weren't purchasing product to like wear on a night out. Those people as well, I think, that had been not, secure in their jobs actually had a lot more disposable income because they weren't spending it on going out, or they weren't spending it on commuting. And I don't know if there's any stats around this, but I do wonder if there was a bit of a baby boom. Mostly, I would say, amongst couples that didn't already have children. I think
there was.
Yeah. I think maybe for families that already had children, COVID was a bit of a contraceptive. But I think that, there was a bit of a baby boom as well. So we had one night in COVID where, when Boris announced, I remember this so vividly, when Boris announced the lockdowns, I remember everything going really quiet for 3 days. And I sort of catastrophized it and was like, oh my God, it's like everything I've worked for, this is it, it's over.
But, I mean, like it was traumatic for all business
for everybody, right? And we didn't know what was going to happen, did we? And were we going to still be able to produce? And so many unknown things. But not long into COVID, we had an evening where we'd bought in more product than normal, which had already been planned. And in 2 hours, we sold more than what we'd sold in the whole previous month.
Oh, wow.
And that's when I was like, okay, maybe it's going to be okay. And actually, there's a market here for that. And also during COVID was when we really started spending on digital advertising.
Yeah.
So we hadn't really done that before. It'd all been very word of mouth.
Yeah, that's smart because that's when digital advertising was really cheap.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's getting more expensive, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really expensive
Yeah.
now.
So yeah, that was kind of the tipping point, I would say. And I feel like we're at another tipping point now. So the last 2 years, we've grown 90% year on year. And this year we're planning to do the same, which will...
Congratulations.
Thank you. Which will sort of propel us to a much higher figure of revenue, which I hope will open kind of opportunities.
Yeah. What do you think is driving that?
I think there's lots of factors. I think the main feedback that we get from customers is around the emotional connection that they have with the brand. And I think we're often talking to women at a time where their identity is really changing. And there's a lot, I don't know if you experienced this postpartum. I know I did, certainly after my first baby, where I felt very at sea and I wasn't quite sure who I was anymore.
Yeah,
because there's
absolutely.
a massive shift in identity.
Your like whole lifestyle changes and your body changes. You look different.
Yeah. People always say to me, oh, is it harder going from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3? And I always say to them, the hardest is going from 0 to 1 child.
Yeah, it's a completely different chapter.
And no one can prepare you for it, I don't think. And I think that women are often finding us in this time of change and almost like self-rediscovery in a way.
I remember the first time I was away from the baby was 6 weeks on. I had to register her birth. And I was just walking to the Camden Council office by myself. And I grabbed a cup of Starbucks and I just started crying. And I was like, oh, like I lost my freedom. Like this is my only freedom.
Yeah.
This is the only freedom I obviously, like I'm sure there were hormonal elements coming into play. But I was just so emotional.
Yeah. I mean,
so I can totally see that.
You are, aren't you? I remember being in the hospital after my first, and after I had given birth to my baby, everyone just started calling me mum instead of by my name. And I remember being like, but I'm still Naomi. But no one called me by, I was like, I'm still this full person that has all these like interests and hobbies and friends, and I have a career, but now you're just calling me mum. That was a real weird point for me. And I think we're talking to a lot of women that are going through that, and we're catering for them in a way that they haven't been catered for before. And I think, you know, as I was saying at the beginning, the maternity wear market was diabolical. And I think there was just a real niche and a real gap in the market, and we just tapped into that. And we haven't by any means reached peak like brand awareness yet. So we've still got a lot of room to grow. And also our market is broadening. So we're now attracting like women going through different life stages who are also going through bodily changes. So perimenopausal, menopausal women. That's just happened naturally because of the type of clothing that we make.
That's interesting. Because was that deliberate? Because now you have a huge range.
Yeah.
It wasn't deliberate.
No, not at all.
And you started developing more for like non-pregnant.
Yeah, I mean, all of our clothes, technically, you can wear when you're pregnant. But a significant proportion, about 70%, aren't pregnant of our customers. And they might be, a lot of them are mothers, but there's a growing percentage of them who are in this like perimenopausal or got grown-up kids.
Yeah, I guess the first customers you acquired back in 2017, they might
could be moving up into that stage.
Yeah.
And even like my mum's friends are wearing the brand.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, and my mum, obviously.
Yeah.
And one of my mum's friends was telling her the other day, like, whenever she wears Beyond 9, she gets stopped in the street by younger women asking her where her trousers are from or whatever. So I think it's something that's spanning. I think it's more about, we don't have like this sort of narrow target based on age. It's more about where you are in your life in terms of how you're feeling and the ethos of the brand that people are buying into. That.
And how do you engage with the customers on an emotional level other than the amazing products?
That's a really good question. Because I don't necessarily know exactly how we do it. I think
if you had to distill it down, what do you think it is like that your community is so strong?
So I think initially it was the visibility of me behind the brand. So people being able to, and I know I love that with brands. You love to see the founder, don't you? And hear the founder's story. So I think a lot of people connected with that and were like, God, that's exactly how I feel. And seeing themselves in me, I guess, as well, and being like, oh, you know, she's been there, she gets it, she understands it. And we used to have this tagline that was like, and we still sometimes use it, that's for women, designed by women who have been there, for women who are there. So them knowing that we get what they're going through and we're here to make their lives easier, and we've got them. So we do a huge amount of, like, our social community is extremely active. Like our DMs are like off the scale, and we reply to everybody, we engage with everybody.
What do they say? Is it mostly compliments, or do they ask questions?
Both.
Yeah.
We also we get a lot of very personal messages from women as well, which is incredible, and the impact is very profound. It sounds ridiculous because sometimes I say to my team, like, if something's going wrong, it's like, we're not saving lives, we are just making clothes. But our community have such a deep connection with the brand that it does feel really, really important and really valuable. One woman, actually, a pop-up we did recently, she was in her 40s, late 40s, and her children were in their 20s. And she said she was buying another pair of Mabel trousers, which are our best-selling trousers, and she already had 12 pairs of Mabel trousers. And she said, buying my 13th pair of Mabel trousers, and until I found Beyond 9, I never felt good about myself. And now I look in the mirror and I feel great. And I was like, God, that's what an amazing thing to be able to do for women. And I think, it comes from the product and the brand story and our levels of engagement with them. Like, we will always respond and communicate directly with them because they're so important to us.
And what's your distribution channel like? Because I bought from your website, but you're hosting pop-ups. Do you have a store? Do you do wholesale?
We only do D2C via the website, really. We do occasional pop-ups. We've talked, we flip between, like, strategy-wise, like, long-term, is it retail or is it wholesale? And I don't know the answer to that at the moment. I know that our customers are desperate to try our product on. So I don't know if you guys wholesale.
We have 1% wholesale, but it's very, like, reactive.
Okay.
So it's a direct-to-consumer brand, 99%.
But you have loads of stores now, don't you, as well?
We do. We have 23 stores.
That's amazing. Because the thing that I find really scary about wholesale is, like, the lack of ownership over the brand. And because...
Yeah, you'll kind of get lost with other brands.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's an amazing marketing tool, right? So it's an amazing awareness driver.
Yeah, and you'll get different type of customers.
Yeah. But I feel so protective that I want to almost, like, own it. And I want, if we ever open retail, I want it to be very Beyond 9.
Yeah.
And be different to what other retailers are offering in that space. Because I think you guys are doing something very different. But often when I go to the shops now, I'm quite uninspired. Yeah. And I just think... It hasn't moved on.
Yeah, you need to have a point of view. You need to do something very differently.
Yeah, and it needs to be an experience, right? And
absolutely.
These messages we get from women, it's like you need to recreate that in a store and create a very safe space for them. So I'm much more excited about that idea.
Yeah. I think it will be amazing.
Yeah. But I suspect we might have to get some investment for that at some point.
Yeah. So tell me about that. Like, what's on your mind right now, and what's next for Beyond 9?
So I've got a certain figure that I want to reach in revenue.
Why is that?
Because someone sort of told me once, and I've, like, hooked onto this, and maybe that's completely naive.
For what? For, like, investments?
Yeah,
or for,
and to be, like, taken seriously. I don't actually think it's necessarily true. Yeah. But it's to get to 10 million.
Yeah.
And to then that hope.
I don't think it's necessarily true. There are so many businesses and brands that got investment, like even pre like 3 too.
I also have got this slight, like, determination that I want to do it without any investment and get to that point.
But if you have grown to a significant amount without any investment, you'll have more full control when you get that investment.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think we're about 18 months away from that.
Oh, congratulations.
Which is super exciting.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And then I need to think beyond that, because at the moment I'm just like so fixated on this number.
It's good to have a goal though.
Yeah.
But because it's really hard to reach that point.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to my husband the other night and saying, I need to look beyond that now, because that's now becoming, that's like not far off being reality now. So actually, what is next? And, you know, my musings are around retail and what that could look like for us. And for some reason, investment feels very, very scary for me. Probably having owned it and had the ownership for so long.
But if you reach 10 million, you will have a lot of control over things.
Yeah. I think for me, it's about finding the right partner.
Yeah. So important.
Yeah. And, you know, I've heard some success stories. I've also heard some horror stories around investment, and it can go wrong, can't it?
Yeah.
And it's making sure that it's with someone who really understands Beyond 9 and what we're trying to achieve. And yes, we'll be answerable to numbers and targets, but for me, growth shouldn't be at all cost.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing, like maintaining that heart of the brand and not losing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And finding someone that understands that.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's people out there.
But what does the team look like right now? You said you hired a COO recently.
Yeah.
Who's got a finance background. You have offices split between Bristol and London.
Yes.
What does that look like? And what teams do you have?
So there's roughly half and half. And then I have some fully remote workers who kind of come into the office on a regular basis. So we have a digital team made up of 2 people. We have a social team made up of 2 people. We have a PR and partnerships manager that works under the head of brand and content, which is the social team. We have a production team of 3. We have a merch team of 2. Oh my God, who have I missed? And a designer as well, just 1 designer at the moment. Yeah. So we've got about probably another 3 that we'll recruit in the next 12 months. Yeah. And then we'll work with the COO on what that longer term recruitment structure looks like. Yeah. It's really hard recruitment, isn't it?
It is very hard.
Many levels.
And I feel like as the business grows and the team grows, as a founder, obviously like the vision for the brand is very important, and it's like always there. Yeah. But getting the org chart right, getting the right team members in is probably the most important thing.
And the thing that I find really scary is taking the leap before you know if you're going to do the revenue. Yeah. So you need the people to hit it. And then, and you can't do it without them.
It's circular, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then like sometimes if you get the wrong people in, it's negative.
Yes. So that's a big lesson that I've learned, is around this kind of startup culture. Like you need a certain type of person.
Yeah. What is that certain type of people?
Glass half full.
Yeah.
So I've had people who are more glass half empty, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah. Because you need to believe in something that doesn't exist right now, right? You need positivity.
You need like almost, you know, dangerous positivity in a way, don't you? Because
positivity and conviction.
Yeah, because if you don't have that, everything's a mountain, isn't it? When you're at this stage and you're growing that fast,
and you need a lot of motivation for the team when you're growing a business.
So people who are glass half full, doers as well. That is so important. So people who don't mind getting stuck in, and also people who can see opportunity and will go for it. Yeah. And I guess it's that kind of growth mindset, isn't it? Yeah. And people looking for things and acting on it. Yeah. And also really taking
acting on
ownership.
Things like right now. Right?
Yeah. Like, okay, that's fine.
Not in like
go and do
year's
it.
Time.
Yeah. And not people who just tell you what it could be or how you're doing it wrong. Yeah. It's like, well, it's within your gift to make it right and, you know, sort it out. So I feel like I've got a really strong team at the moment.
Oh, great.
Which is super exciting. And it's just really rallying them around that growth and getting them to believe in it. And
that's so good to hear.
Yeah.
What's one advice you'd give an early stage entrepreneur?
Only one piece of advice.
Oh, it could be multiples. The more, the merrier.
So one, I guess, is about if you're working with other people would be what we just said. So making sure you've got the right kind of people by your side. when you make that first hire, making sure that they're...
And I think that applies to all founder-led businesses, not just your business or like my business.
Yeah, totally. So definitely that. I think you have to have that belief and that passion. You have to really believe in your product. Because I don't know if you felt like this, but I still even feel it now when we put new product out. It can feel very exposing and you feel very vulnerable. right? If you're worried that people are not going to like something, or I don't know, if you ever get an email from a customer and it tells you they're disappointed, it's like literally the worst feeling ever. But if you've got belief in your product and you have got, I think you have to have a USP, you have to have a unique angle. Otherwise, what's making you stand out from the crowd? So thinking about that. And I think also not worrying about the fact that you don't know it all. And like we were saying earlier, that naivety and what kind of good stead that can actually set you in, and taking advantage of that. And a really healthy dose of resilience. You need to be super resilient.
Yeah. Great advice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Naomi. That was so fun. So nice to meet you finally.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to follow the podcast wherever you're listening or watching. You can follow me at Connie Nam, Astrid and Miyu at Astrid and Miyu, and the Unboxed Instagram page at unboxed_founder confidential. See you next week.